to start. Welcome to our May Exportia Lab, working with European key opinion leaders. So we'll have a discussion about that, and the reason we're doing that is building a network of key opinion leaders is really like a key to success, I think, for small businesses. It's like a secret weapon for small businesses. And with some of my customers, we have used this technique or key opinion leaders to change. We've managed to change or influence a local regulation in a specific country, but also we've managed to generate very large deals thanks to those key opinion leaders we had on board. So it's been very, very interesting. That's why I thought we'd do a lab and touch on this topic with you, with everyone. And so let's start. Most of you know me, so I'm gonna flick through the intro very quickly because no need to, some of you are also my customers and long-term partners. So 20 years of sales experience in Europe. I have a track record in building European key opinion leaders networks, but also managing distributors, European distributors for our customers, and that means that we also have a lot of track record in scaling our Australian clients into the European market with our ultimate goal, which is generating 1 million euros in sales, but also going beyond. And so that's what we are here for. If you probably all have the copy of my latest book, which won the best Australian sales and communication business book in 2020, and the 4 steps to generate your first €1 million in sales. If you don't have it, just ask for a copy to Leo in the chat. He'll send you a copy. I originally worked for IBM, I had a portfolio of 40 million euros per year, selling technology, software, and services and hardware. And then I moved to Adelaide in 2006 to start Exportia. Now the business is based in Sydney. So why am I sharing this topic with you today? So first of all, creating a network of European key opinion leaders is a powerful way to generate traction in Europe. It's cost effective and it's a perfect tool for small businesses. In my experience, it is a perfect tool, I think, for small businesses. So what we are going to do today is we're going to spend 15 minutes on 5 key points together, and then we're going to spend about 10 minutes in Q&A and discuss about that topic and see what you think about it, if you have any specific questions, or if you maybe for your own business you're struggling to build that key opinion leader European network. Maybe we can discuss about that. Okay, here is the framework for today. First of all, we're going to look at the goal. What is our goal, ultimate goal, when we want to build a network of European KOL? What's the definition? What is a KOL, key opinion leaders? And I think we need to think a bit laterally about it. It's not just a specific definition. You need to try to think about it in different ways. Then how do you identify and spot your KOLs? What question you should ask yourself when you're trying to find a KOL? And then number 4 is, what can they do for you? And I'll list a number of things they usually do for small businesses or for your company. And then what can you do for them? Why will they want to work with you? I think it is a very important thing for them to, for it to be an exchange and not just them providing their support, but also you providing support to them in some form and shape. Okay, so let's first have a think about the goal, the ultimate goal, I think, for small business, and why it is important for small business to think about building a network of European key opinion leaders, I think the ultimate goal is for small business coming from Australia or somewhere else to come into the European market. The hardest thing is to build your credibility. And basically, those businesses or organizations or hospitals, governmental institutions that you're trying to sell to, they're often very conservative, very loud, they're risk averse, and therefore to buy from you, they will need to have some kind of credentials. And that's where key opinion leaders are really interesting, because they are going to help us, small businesses, build our credibility. Okay, I think this is a key element in building that key opinion leader network. It is the ultimate goal for me. Okay, what is a key opinion leader? You may think that this is just for the medical sector, and some of you are not in that sector. So let's look at the perspective from a medical healthcare environment, lab environment. So a key opinion leader is a person that can influence their peers in buying and encourage them to buy a specific product or service. They usually have an authority, and they usually influence their peers from our perspective. Our influencers will actually encourage their peers to buy a product, right? This is the definition. It's very common in healthcare, and often they are, oh, I see a spelling there. They are professors or doctors who publish about their specialty. They publish studies, they do some research, and that a medical device company or a pharma company may be interested in medical professional publishing a study outlining the benefits based on a scientific research of a medical device or of a specific product. So that's key opinion leader as we usually know them. It's a known type of partnership. It's very regulated in the medical sector. So it is very known, but what if I don't actually, I'm not active. I know there are a few industrial clients here. What if I'm not active in the healthcare? What is healthcare? Is not my industry. Do I not have a key opinion leaders in my industry? Yes, I do. Let's think about that literally. So a key opinion leader in your industry could be a professional, could be a large corporate, it could be a government organization, it could also be an association. Okay, so let's try to be open on what these key opinion leaders, what profile they could have. And let's have a look at how we can identify them. Okay, so how to identify your key opinion leaders? You're going to ask yourself, I have a long list of questions there. Ask yourself those types of questions to try to identify them. I'm just going to have it. Okay, so let's have a look at like individuals or companies or organization. Maybe who does not buy your product directly, but can recommend it. What's in your ecosystem? They don't buy your product, but they recommend it. They prescribe it. So who are they? Who is that? An association? Is it a government organization? Is it a professional or a consulting company that can recommend your product? Okay, who then? There's a different profile, which is who does buy your product and has the capability or the authority to encourage their peers to buy as well and say, I've bought it, I'm very convinced it works really well for me. I encourage you to buy it too. Who can dictate, impose your customers to buy your product? So there could be some organization which are actually specifying specific products that your customers should buy. And you need to make sure you are on that list. So that organization is your key opinion leader, is your major influencer. Another question you need to ask yourself is who has authority in your field? So in the medical sector, it is very common to have a professor, publish in their specialty. They are the authority. They've done a lot of research in that topic. So they're quite easy to identify by just looking at specific publication about a specialty. Who has, so if I'm more of a industrial product, who has the capability to assess the quality of my product and issue an advice on it? Who has that, who is credible, which external party is able to do that and provide an advice about the quality of your product? Another way to look at it and try to identify who are your key opinion leaders in your market is who is part of a commission or an organization who is publishing guidelines or recommendations about your product. Okay, that's also the type of question you need to ask yourself to try to see how you're gonna spot and identify your key opinion leaders in the specific market, in a specific country, whether it's, France, Germany, UK, Italy, or Spain. So it's really important to go through that process for you to start to identify and define who your key opinion leaders could be. I'm just going to give you an example. So this is an industry example, and so we had a customer for a very long time, and they were producing an accessory that was enabled in the automotive sector that was sold to ambulance manufacturers or camper van manufacturers. And basically that device enabled to power accessories in an ambulance and to charge batteries and so on. And it also enabled to be compliant with and minimize CO2 emissions. So basically the product was bought by the ambulance manufacturer, but then the chassis of the car was manufactured and produced by large car manufacturers. So, but those car manufacturers had some specific pressure from the European Union to reduce carbon emissions. And basically not many products were able to power accessories in an ambulance and be also compliant at the same time with the CO2 emission limitations. So basically my client's product was enabling to power accessories in an ambulance, but also enabling the ambulance manufacturer to comply with the CO2 emission regulation. So suddenly we had a potential KOL, which was a large corporate, the European car manufacturers, which were really interested in this device because it enabled their customers to be happy. That means to power their devices and make the ambulance work properly, but also to be compliant. So we did not sell directly to the car manufacturers, but the car manufacturers assessed the product and tested their technical reliability, and then prescribed it, recommended it to their customers, which were the ambulance manufacturers. So in that case, we don't have a person as a KOL, we have a large corporate, which is a very large multinational recommending the product of a small business based in Australia, because it was solving their problem and it was also helping their customers. So this is a very different way to think about key opinion leaders, but this enabled us to really bump our revenue for our customer, to reach very much larger deals, to become the reference in the market. So instant credibility to be recognized and recommended by very large European car manufacturers and brands. So that was a very, very interesting exercise. So what can a key opinion leader do for you, for your business? So here are some examples. So they can validate the technical capability of your product, as we discussed, and assess it and recommend it. Then they can test it internally in their R&D departments or in their labs, and then they can issue an advice about it. So your solution can be part of a list of solutions that they recommend. They can also, if they are, for example, in the medical sector, what would be very usual is for them to publish articles about the benefits of your products, scientifically proven, as they've done a study about it. They can also decide, if I'm a large corporate and I have evaluated your product, am I interested in it, I can maybe bundle it into a larger offering. So in the case of the car manufacturers, it could have been possible later down the track for these car manufacturers to sell my client's device with their car. That could have been a bundle. So there's that possibility too. They can simply, if they are a doctor or a journalist, they can simply publish a story about your product on social media, in a magazine, and just making an experience that they share. It can also influence your market and influence your customers. They can present to their peers at conferences about your product and their experience about your product and how they've used it and what it has solved for them. So that's a very common way. It's a very light way to actually leverage a key opinion leader, get them to present on your behalf about their experience with your product. They can, if we think about a different way of partnering with the key opinion leaders, if you think of key opinion leaders as an organization that can potentially prescribe, recommend your product and maybe subsidize it. So for example, in safety, we have a client of ours whereby in certain markets, I mean in major European markets, there are some consultants and some government bodies that actually go on sites in factories, do an evaluation about the safety of the workers, and then decide that these workers need to be best protected, and they can subsidize a better equipment for these factories. So maybe there is possibility that other partner organization or other key opinion leaders organization can also even subsidize your product. They can support a change in regulation. I've had a client of mine who had a very breakthrough innovation and into a very traditional market. And basically the regulation was really designed around very old technology. So, and that was an issue for my client because that technology didn't really fit into the local regulations and guidelines. So working with a very large corporate client of ours, our corporate client, who was also a part of commission working group around the safety of their workers, also decided that they should lobby the regulators to change the regulation and allow a newcomer to come in the market. So as a small business, it's very hard if you want to start lobby the regulator. But if you have a very large corporate that has adopted your product, is a supporter, has an excellent experience, and want to see the regulation change, they can support you do that. You cannot do that by yourself. So that's also another way a key opinion leader can support you. Other examples in healthcare, one of my customer initially was their device was evaluated by the Frankfurt Public Health Authority. We targeted a professor who was writing on a specific topic in highly infectious disease. We targeted him through his publications that were really working really well for my customer's device. We targeted that professor. He bought a few units for his own department, but that wasn't really, we were not really after, he could not buy a lot of volume because he had a small team. However, what he did is, because he was part of a very large and influential commission, that was a national commission in Germany, he was able to share his experience with the product a number of times, and we actually had constant referral from this customer, from this professor, around the use of the product. And so we started to have some leads coming from resulting of that, because during the commission meeting, he was always sharing information about our technology. He would also invite us to some of the commission meetings for us to present and explain what we are doing. Another example is when you sign a very large client, in that case, let's say Charité in Berlin, which is one of the largest European hospitals, and you have a doctor there that is a fan of your product or has been loving using your product, then you can just, as I said before, invite them to be part of one of your congresses that you are participating in. It's also a very good way to leverage key opinion leaders. It's a light way, it's a very low commitment for them as well. So what can you do for them? I think it's important that they feel that it's also valuable for them. Some of them, you cannot really always do much, especially if it's very regulated, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. So you have to be careful. But the main thing is, if you solve a problem for them, if you think of those car manufacturers, they had an issue to solve, their client had some difficulties to comply, had some difficulties to power the accessories in their ambulance. Here we come with a small Australian small business, innovative product, we solve a problem. So we add some value for them. Currently I'm working with a KOL of one of my customers, and what we do in Europe is he's publishing a study about the use of my Australian customer product, and I'm promoting his study into large European congresses where he can promote his study and explain about his result. For him, it gives him some international exposure, and so he's very interested. You can give them some freebies, and you have to be careful there depending on your industry of what you can and cannot do, what's ethical and possible. So a technical assessment, for example, of your product will require some free product. They can also absolutely, the companies you're giving the products to can disclose that they've received product from you. It can be managed in the right way. You can support them in one of their projects. If they're launching a new product, a new study or a new assessment project, you can support them. You can promote that project. You can promote what they do. You can recommend them. You can introduce them to other people, to other KOLs, to some of your customers. I've done that a few times, and I had underestimated that we could, as a small business, do that introductions and use that as a way to provide some value to key opinion leaders. So we're almost running out of time. Let me go through the 5 key points. The goal, the ultimate goal of the key opinion leaders is for us small to medium sized high growth businesses, create credibility and trust in the market. This is where we really need, it's a very powerful tool to create credibility. A key opinion leaders can be, of course, in the healthcare. It can be a doctor, a professor, publishing studies about their specialty and be an authority in it. But it could also be a corporate. It could be a consulting firm. It could be a professional, which has some authority. It could be a government organization. The way to identify KOLs, ask yourself question, who is influencing the purchasing decision? Who is dictating a list of validated products for my market? Who is writing about my specialty? Who have authority in the space? Who is talking about this topic in conferences? And then what can they do for you? They can recommend your product. They can share their experience with your product. They can validate the quality of your product. They can put your product in a list of recommended products. So there's a lot of things that key opinion leaders can do for you. And then what you can do for them, you can promote what they're doing. If they're doing some research internationally, you can promote that. You can also do some introductions if they want to be linked to another doctor somewhere else, for example. You can introduce them to potential customers maybe. So there's many things you can do also for them. So now I have a challenge for you. Which person in or organization could you target as a key opinion leader for your product, for your industry? And how are you going to go about it to target them and approach them? So that is the question. So I think as a conclusion that this is a very, very powerful way to create credibility, increase the revenue, generate revenue faster by having the support of key opinion leaders. Okay, if we have a question there, so time for questions. If you have any comment or any question you would like to ask, please do so. We still have a few minutes to go through. So there's a first question there. If we are in manufacturing, then the KOL must be in complementary businesses. Yes, they need to be in complementary businesses. You don't want to be, it can be good to be recommended by a competitor in some cases if they don't play in your field, but it may be hard in other ways. I don't think they would recommend your product. Yes, complementary industries is a good way to look at it. Yes, so my response is yes, the KOL organization needs to be complementary to yours, or be interested in what you are doing, and obviously a competitor would not have interest in promoting your product. Is there any other questions? How do we source key opinion leaders? So you need to first ask yourself the questions. So who for your, I think we went through a list of questions there. You can access it on the recording. For the key opinion leaders, the critical thing is for you to be very specific about the type of key opinion leaders you would like to target. Okay, so go through that list of questions of what do they look like, what part of commissions or steering committees, or what type of specialty expertise would they be working on or be skilled in. So and then you can so I have another question. Okay, is a clinical efficacy trial enough to have a GPs and dermatologists recommend our product? It's vitamins for acne treatment. Well, I think you can absolutely try and start, and with that, and then build on it. Continue to build your credentials with different studies, but you can only start. I mean, if you don't have a full network of key opinion leaders for your product, start with what you have, and then as you identify additional key opinion leaders in the market you're targeting, then you can start to think about what else you can do with them, and if they can try and if they can try your product, recommend it, or conduct another study. But you have to try with what you have and test what works. That's for sure. Even a study conducted, in Australia, you can also promote it in Europe. No problem. We've done that before. We have invited Australian doctors to speak at conferences, and we have subtitled there. We've recorded them presenting, and we've done some subtitles in the local language during conferences. So there's always things that can be done, and we cannot always have KOLs straight away in every single country. So we have to do with what we have, but definitely use them for sure. Any other question? I'm just looking at the time. We've run out. Does anyone have a last question so far? Okay, let me see if we have another one while we talk. So next, and that will be some interest of interest to some of you. Next lab, it will be at the end of May, so 25th. We are going to have the Holland International Distribution Council talking, and basically we're going to talk about setting up supply chain activities in the Netherlands. And I know some of you in this meeting are interested, so tune in, and we're going to look at options. They have a lot of service to help companies set up distribution supply chain in the Netherlands to be able to dispatch product and organize the logistics throughout the European market. So I would strongly recommend you tune in. And thank you everyone for attending this lab. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out at any time. Okay, we can definitely talk about it, about this topic of key opinion leaders separately. So I wish you a very good day. I will see you on the 25th of May for our next Exportia lab. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.